a nation divided, setting the stage for conflict. The Vietnam War pitted North Vietnam and the Viet Cong against South Vietnam and the United States. The conflict was intensified by the Cold War. The seeds of the war were sown post-World War II. Ho Chi Minh led Vietnamese nationalists to victory at Dien Bien Phu in 1954. The Geneva Accords temporarily separated Vietnam into North and South. The US supported the cancellation of the 1956 elections, setting the stage for conflict. At the heart of the Vietnam War lay a complex interplay of factors: the rise of communism, colonialism, and the Vietnamese people's fervent desire for independence. Ho Chi Minh's communist ideology promised national liberation and social equality. The United States, driven by the domino theory, saw Vietnam as a crucial Cold War battleground. The US commitment to containing communism drew America deeper into the Vietnam War. Initially, the United States provided military advisors and financial aid to South Vietnam. However, as the conflict intensified, American involvement escalated dramatically. President John F. Kennedy increased the number of military advisors in South Vietnam, while his successor, Lyndon B. Johnson, authorized the deployment of combat troops in 1965, marking a turning point in American involvement. The United States employed a strategy of attrition, seeking to inflict heavy casualties on the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong. American forces relied heavily on air power, bombing North Vietnamese cities, supply lines, and suspected enemy positions in South Vietnam. The use of napalm, an incendiary weapon, and Agent Orange, a powerful defoliant, had devastating effects on the Vietnamese landscape and civilian population, causing widespread destruction and long-term health problems. Section 4. Turning Points and Tet Offensive, Shifting Tides and Public Opinion. Despite American military superiority, the North Vietnamese Army and the Viet Cong proved to be resilient and resourceful opponents. The Tet Offensive, launched in January 1968, marked a turning point in the war. The coordinated attacks on South Vietnamese cities, although ultimately repelled, exposed the limitations of American military power and shook public confidence in the Johnson administration's handling of the war. The Tet Offensive had a profound impact on American public opinion, fueling anti-war sentiment and leading to growing calls for peace. The televised images of the fighting broadcast into American homes brought the brutality of the war to the forefront of American consciousness. The credibility gap between the Johnson administration's optimistic pronouncements about the war and the realities on the ground widened, eroding public support for the conflict. Section 5. Scars of War. The enduring impact on soldiers and civilians. The Vietnam War exacted a heavy toll on both soldiers and civilians. American soldiers, many of whom were young draftees, faced a brutal enemy and a hostile jungle environment. The psychological trauma of combat, coupled with the physical injuries sustained in battle, left many veterans with lasting scars. Post-traumatic stress disorder, drug addiction, and social isolation became common problems among returning veterans. Vietnamese civilians bore the brunt of the war's devastation. Millions of Vietnamese were killed or wounded, and countless others were displaced from their homes. The use of napalm and Agent Orange had long-term environmental and health consequences, contaminating land and water sources and causing birth defects and other health problems. The war left an indelible mark on Vietnamese society, shaping its political, economic, and social landscape for decades to come. Section 6. Legacies of a Divided Nation. Reflections on the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War ended in 1975 with the fall of Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam, to North Vietnamese forces. The war had profound and lasting consequences for the United States, Vietnam, and the world. In the United States, the war left a legacy of division and disillusionment, shaking public trust in the government and sparking a national debate about the limits of American power. The war also had a profound impact on Vietnam. The country was reunified under communist rule, but the scars of war ran deep. The communist government faced the daunting task of rebuilding the war-torn nation, and healing the divisions that had plagued Vietnamese society for decades. The Vietnam War serves as a cautionary tale about the human costs of conflict and the unintended consequences of intervention in the affairs of other nations.